Welcome back, my poets, to Poetry 101. This week we are talking about nature poetry, and for the nature poet, we are talking about Mary Oliver. Now, a side tangent about Mary Oliver, she is weird with religion. So, she'll mention religious things like God, Jesus, crucifixion, metaphors that are clearly from the Bible. And also, she'll be like, but God is nature. Nature is the body of God. So there's some theological things that I don't agree with, and I'm just prefacing that because I do own this book, and I want you to know that though I like some of the wording and the poetryness of it, I don't 100% agree with everything. Just putting that out there. Nature poetry is a very common and very popular type of poems where the poem is about nature. And typically it is using a lot of imagery of nature and talking about the emotion that those things invoke. This also includes a lot of personification. Now, imagery and personification are both things we have talked about in this series, so I have videos on those if you want to learn about it. But personification is when you take something that is not human, you give it human like features. For example, the trees are dancing or swaying, which are not things that trees actually do. I mean, trees can sway, but they don't actually dance. Other examples will be, the bird is here for his schedule. Birds don't have schedules. That's a human thing. Things like that. This is Lingering in Happiness by Mary Oliver. After rain, after many days without rain, it stays cool, private and cleansed under the trees. And the dampness there, married now to gravity, falls branch to branch, leaf to leaf, down to the ground, where it will disappear, but not, of course, vanish, except to our eyes. The roots of the oaks will have their share, and the white threads of grasses and the cushion of moss, a few drops, round as pearls, will enter the mole's tunnel. And soon so many small stones, buried for 1,000 years, will feel themselves being touched. So, nature poetry is typically telling some sort of story. It can be about you, the author, in the environment of nature and how that affects you. It can be observing. A lot of Mary Oliver's poems are actually her just, she's outside when the poem begins. Enter creature. Here's my thoughts on creature. Here's how that makes me feel. Here's how it makes me feel about life. End of poem. It's not that rigid because, as a poet, it's not, this is my formula. It's more, this is the thing I like writing about. And for Mary Oliver, that is nature. Typically, there's some sort of story either of the author or of nature itself. So let's say we're talking about just a bird. Here's the bird's story. Here is my reflection on the bird. Here's what he does with his day. The interaction has now ended. Sometimes it's not even an interaction. It's just, oh, to be a bird, and this is the bird's life, and here's how I would feel as a bird. Sometimes it doesn't even have the author itself in it. For example, the tree roots had nothing about the author. Like, I stand and watch water fall down. It disappear. She says it's invisible to my eye, but it's still there. I'm saying a lot of nonsense stuff because it's very hard to talk about nature poetry unless, you are reading and taking in the poetry, which is why I would highly recommend reading poetry. I didn't expect to get here for this part of the video. Mary Oliver's Devotions is a collection of all of her stuff. Again, I kind of recommend it. There's some good stuff in here, but if you are a Christian, just take a grain of salt with some of the stuff she'll say about religion and life and how it works. Use judgment and stuff. I also like little poem books like this. This is Bright Poems for Dark Days. I found this at Five Below. It's just a collection of poems. Some of them are really popular, like The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll, or one of the Psalms, specifically like Psalm 23 from the Bible. But then there's also like ones you won't have heard of that might be like by famous authors, but it's not like the poem you know by them. I also have more collections like 100 Poems for Bright Days, 100 Best Poems of All Times. These are poem books that I've used in this video. Some personal recommendations. I would highly recommend Pieces of My Heart by Marissa Ann. This is one of my friends. I follow her on Instagram. You should go read her stuff. This was a limited release, Change of State by Hannah Hodgson, but following people on Instagram who post poetry helps you with poetry. And these are both Christian authors, so these are both authors that have something in common with me that I like reading from. I am also a poet. You can follow my Instagram at officialjustinstrikes. Check out the link below if you want to check out my poetry books. They are available on lulu.com, not on Amazon because I won't make money on Amazon. You can check out more from the series here. You can subscribe over here, and I will see y'all next week.